taking Ignite and killing Zoe at level 6. As that's just a lock-in. A straight-up lock-in on the Yorick. So now we know the lane assignments. I mean, Smeb will be taking the Yorick Morian top side. Griffin already have Victor and Galio. What lane assignments can they have to bail them out of potentially some tricky matchups?
Yeah. You'd have to imagine the Yasuo goes bottom side, but what is going to be the answer for the Yorick here? Hovering the Fiora, and that should be first sword. Very interesting.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yes.
I say should be.
Exactly.
But you never really know because
Doesn't sound like a sword
try
pick,
to put it into the mid lane.
Doesn't really sound like a sword pick. He plays Jace and then pretty much the bruises, right?
Yeah.
So let's wait and see on that one. We're going to focus on the final pick here because we know very little about what Griffin are doing. We're very heavily thinking support Galio, given how the draft has gone. And we will be getting a support Galio as first suspected. So this means they have now the combo with the Galio. It's Galio-Zac. But do they have the lanes to allow Zac to prosper, given what's going on the side of KT? Let's see how they fully jive out. But my first thought is looking risky. Final pick here for KT Rolster is going to be support. And it's the support that enables Yasuo more reliably than any. You throw out a cask lazily, you're going to knock someone up, most likely. That means that here we go. Very risky bot lane, but Zenit has evolved into this awesome dude player. It's one of the prototype awesome dudes. Bot lane Yasuo against the man who previously was the best awesome dude. That was Viper, but he's been almost exclusively AD carry duty. Most recently, he's going to have some pushing help with his friend Lehends on the Galio. Waiting for 20 seconds on the lane assignments here. Cleanse Victor trying to wave clear against Zoe seems to be what's being muted. And that does mean we get sword on Fiora. Is it a mismatch of champion and player? Is it not? Sword is definitely going to make an argument that he can pull this one off. And how does the Fiora versus Yorick matchup look like in the early levels? It sounds rough.
It does sound rough, but I was thinking along the same lines as you there. What does that matchup look like? You'd have to give it to the Fiora eventually as she gained levels. You can just hop out of that little cage that he puts up as well and just duel decently well, but I suppose the harass from the Yorick will always be hard to deal with, especially early on. So you can see this once again. Chovy has his Akali dumped on and taken away from him, and now he jumps onto the Victor.
But who do you like priority-wise in the mid? Probably Zoe. Who do you like priority-wise in the top? Probably Yorick. And what does that mean for the Zac with 2 losing lanes for Valdez? That's my worry. On the draft here, UmTi could be empowered to go for some pretty aggressive counter jungling here. The only problem is double melee bot lane can potentially fall very far behind. How will the identities look? Fun matchup here, Griffin versus KT.
KT getting in there, waiting until they show up on the screen. We're always on this blue side as the English casting desk, and Griffin starting on the blue side. You guys got to hear just how loud they are. You were mentioning that all the seats are always filled up for every Griffin game. Absolutely true tonight. KT also have their hefty amount of fans, one of the biggest fan bases in Korea as an organization, and they showed up tonight as well.
And when it came to Kesper scheduling out the games, this is one of the most hype possible games on paper before the season started. It's an LCK summer rematch of one of the best of fives we've ever had in Korea. Unbelievable series where KT just outlasted Griffin over 5 games. However, honestly for me, KT's role in this particular series is to make that narrative not a false narrative. Because if you actually look at how the seasons have gone, it seems like a Griffin 2-0, right? You just plug and play it. KT want to bring it back to the good things they were doing in the past, but with a very different roster. Only Smeb returning from the squad that took on KT Rolster, took on Griffin on the day. Meanwhile, Griffin are full strength from that matchup all the way back in September. KT Rolster want to come back from this Lunar New Year break and show they can still be a contender rather than a relegation contender.
We were talking a little bit, do the players get much of a break during the Lunar New Year. Based on what we've heard on the side of Griffin, the answer is no. These guys are pro gamers. They don't get much time off. They've been practicing as it is still, you know, in the middle of the season right now. So nobody taking too much time off. Still just practicing their hearts out, trying to be the best they can be.
All right, let's note something right here. Look at the bot lane. It is Frostmancy from Viper on the Ezreal. That means that Galio gets to farm. This is why they first picked Galio, is because Galio actually scales with items super well, and you can get access to AP items farming, while Ezreal is not going to be focused on farming. In fact, he'd rather have 0 CS than 2. So the way this draft is gone, it's purely to allow for a pretty damn farmed Galio alongside Ezreal in the early game. Is going to hit 1 or 2 AP items. And Valdez, I like this way more when in the past we have seen Sandbox Gaming playing the support Galio, because that's just support Galio. And remember, Galio was made way more about AP and doesn't have the base resist on the ultimate anymore. Just not getting many AP items and thus only really being about the knockup. There might actually be some AP items coming out of Lehends this game, because he's going to get some farm.
And when you think about it, the change to the Frostmancy and the Ancient Coin is that an ally needs to be within 1,500 range of your champion in order for that to really work. So I suppose even after the patch, even after this week, you could do this kind of thing, can't you, Papa? And
I love that you bring it up like that, because you so eloquently get to my next point, which is they're practicing a Frostmancy strategy that exists next week. So it's actually real stage practice, not fake stage practice. That's why when we saw Kingzone beat SKT in Game 1, you're like, holy crap, you guys have practiced this strategy very well. Shame it's gone next week.
Yeah.
With this strategy, you're like, actually, this is a forever strategy until the item is changed more than the 9.3 hotfix. And to confirm, guys, in the bottom left, you'll see patch 9.3 for the entirety of week number 4, but no Frostmancy changes in Korea.
It's even more abusive when you get it on the Ezreal as well, because you take the Kleptomancy on Ezreal. He's the only AD carry that you take it on. I'm going to hold that thought as Lehends got himself into way too much trouble. First blood. Going to go over to Zenit as they were really playing with their food there, and they got too close to the fire.
And that's why it's risky to give your support farm, Valdez, because sometimes they don't know what to do with it. He just walks down the lane way too far and gives over too much to the side of KT Rolster. You should never die 2v2 to Yasuo or Gragas pre-level 6. But Lehends at his worst in summer season last year died in 2v2 a lot. Remember all those Morgana games where he died to no gank pressure on the bot side. And this is their only winning lane on paper in the early game. Can the Zac really allow for this to happen? We watch the replay. He walks up, he gets minion blocked, he doesn't flash early enough. Pretty much did everything wrong here, did Lehends.
He needed to flash and then Justice punch away immediately. That's the only way you survive. And as you mentioned, you know, just to be disrespectful enough to get in range of the tornado and then the body slam and just into everything else. Not what you want from your support to start this off. And now Snowflower trying to make it interesting mid lane. Not really anything will happen here just yet.
Definitely the sort of thing where if you're Lehends, you're like, it was the minion block. And I'm like, no, actually, watch the replay. No. You were way too far up, mate. So, whoopsie from Lehends on that one. Again, 26 CS for Lehends at the moment. The only CS for the Ezreal after the first 2 was when Lehends died, because there's actually going to be an amount of time where you can CS and the quest doesn't matter. Bot side, we're going again.
Oh boy, Lehends, he still doesn't have his flash, and there is no way he's going to get away from this one as UmTi with the follow-up in the bot lane as Lehends dies twice at 6 minutes.
And do notice that Viper actually took some insurance for Lehends. He took heal on Ezreal when the LCK meta has been teleport, just to give Lehends a bit more of a tool. But unfortunately, the heal's still on cooldown. Lehends is dead a second time. And this is all going from bad to worse. Somehow, KT Rolster's trying to recreate their good past record. Remember that Griffin has never beaten KT Rolster in a series, the only opponent we can speak of like that.
It would be really crazy if after a fantastic early game they would be able to roll it into an actual victory, but we'll have to wait and see. Still just a good early game with a couple of kills on the support Galio that farms. Weird situation we're in here right now, but does mean the Mountain Drake goes to the side of UmTi and KT. Your bottom lane, Yasuo, 1-0-1, farming quite well in a lane that maybe shouldn't have been this easy. You can see how this happens again.
It's just so funny watching the lane positioning. How many times do you see a lane position where the support overextends to push the wave and the Ezreal's behind the support just being like, I'd like to hit a bad guy, but I don't want to hit the minions. It's just such funny stuff. And then you realize it's a Galio more than halfway down a long lane, and it's a great gank timing. So just because Lehends and Viper probably have, you know, 5s, 10s, 15 games of practice on this duo, you're seeing some of the little mistakes that you wouldn't make on a standard 80 carry support duo when we're not talking about something like Frostman's.
It's just the fact as well that he makes the mistake the first time as Aftershock Galio that's farming, so he should have some items and shouldn't be dying. And then he just gets caught up the lane pushing, as you're mentioning once again. It's just kind of sad beginning. Should have had a much better lane up against Yasuo Gragas in the early stages here. So
what I want people at home to appreciate, though, because I know a lot of people, when Frostmanty lost for Gen G in our first series on it, were like, okay, why was this hotfix? What's the point? And then we saw it abused, and people were like, oh, okay. This is actually a really powerful strategy, and it also shows us why Galio was first. It was first picked to be the best champion to CS next to a Frostmancy Ezreal. So maybe this is a strategy we'll see in LCS and LEC when those get started later today. But right now, some of the actual fine-tuning hasn't happened, some big mistakes, and this is all while Tarzan is on the Zac with 2 losing solo lanes. And the only good news story is that Tarzan hasn't been counter-jungled effectively. Him going level for level with a Lee Sin is good news for Griffin.
Multiple times challenged at his Raptors and does a very good job of just sustaining and getting the majority of them. Even the second time when the Gragas is able to get on in there because of their dominating bottom lane. So definitely good stuff, as you mentioned. We take a look at the top lane. We were talking about how maybe it was going to be hard. Definitely Sword has been pushed in the early game, but he is keeping up in CS. Should only be 1 behind the York.
And you know what I'm thinking, Valdez? And this is something I was thinking after we finally saw the return of Fiora when Khan played is, I think we may have the first ever Fiora meta. And the reason why I say that is, I've been thinking about champions that really benefited from the introduction of some itemization changes and Spear Shojin coming in, and thinking, okay, this is an interesting item. Who does it benefit? It really fits Fiora better than maybe anyone else. It's a much better fit for CDR than Black Cleaver is bot lane.
Lots of damage already onto Zenit, but the stretching strikes will go wide, and Tarzan not going to make the gank happen.
Need a level 7 for the Elastic Slingshot range to be enough there, but watching Tarzan clear out a ward can't be too risky here. Remember, Body Slam is also something that opens up the last breath. Zenit level 7 at the moment. BD coming down. He has Ghost. Will be spotted.
Tarzan doesn't seem to be too concerned with this. Everybody hanging around the bottom side, but no gank will happen, Papa.
But the reason why I really respect the Spear Shojin Fiora is at 40% CDR Fiora, she can open with her riposte, and then once you get enough levels, once you hit 3 items with Fiora, you can end with riposte, you can have a mid-fight riposte. She already does the true damage and has the ultimate that scales so hard by level 16. We always kind of said, well, this lane sucks for Fiora till 2 items. Maybe she just wins every lane at 3 items, and that's very interesting to think about, because if you can get away with her and 10 CS down, you're feeling fine. If you're the Fiora, maybe we will have that first ever Fiora meta now that items seem to really fit her like a glove.
Yeah, I mean, you were even saying it when you have guys like Sword, who, you know, he's a great Scion player. He plays bruisers, he plays tanks. You know, the occasional Jace, stuff like that, but not really known to play Fiora, of course. If he's the one going for Fiora, that means that Fiora must be in a really good spot if this guy is showing up to learn this champion.
And I'm pretty scared of Fiora being an all-the-time champion and not a sometimes champion, because whenever I face one in solo queue, I'm reminded of how strong Fiora is. Whenever you meet a Fiora main, it's a bad time. So everyone could be a Fiora main before long. But zooming in on this game, the quest is now there. Ezreal's finally farming. Hooray. His CSD is in the toilet, by the way. Tarzan walks up, remember, level 6, and not a lot of help with no priority in lanes.
He's taking a bit of damage. Can Tarzan win the smite fight? Taking a bit of damage, but BDD going to be zoned away by Chovy. And now UmTi is a little bit too low. He's going for the kill. He's going to miss it. But finally, the flash over the wall there from Chovy, able to pick up the kill. BDD going to miss there, but here comes the Fiora down on the bottom side, going 2v3, but Galio from the bottom lane. What a crazy fight with a double-man tornado. And now Zenit, he's looking for more kills, wants to get on top of Lehends. Can he survive, though? Gets the double tornado again, but has that ignite ticking. But he's going to get to the Raptors, and Snowflower helps him out. Zenit will live for now. Will any more kills come in? Zenit not going to hit the tornado that time around. But Smeb going to go down as Tarzan and Lehends make the duo work. But there you go. Zach finally goes down over at the Raptors, and what an insane fight already here at the Red Buff.
A super extended fight, but remember, Valdez, remember who was not there. Ezreal does not join the fight. So in an unnumbered fight, they're outnumbered with Griffin. They even get Chovy out. He was so far behind enemy lines. However, UmTi.
Oh boy, Chovy sticking around, but he gets the stun down. 1 health, and UmTi not going to go for it. Chovy gets away and keeps his KDA.
No cost occurs. The KDA continues. Close to 44 KDA now with 2 kills already. Ezreal catches up on farm as well. That's very important. Otherwise, it would have been big advantage, KT Rolster.
Well, that was a lot of fighting,
yeah.
Papa, already. 13 minutes into the game. UmTi getting caught by just the tip of the stun right there. Very unfortunate for them. But the Rift Herald also went the way of KT and Smeb, even though UmTi was forced away. We'll see how this began right now.
And what I want to show you is the mini-map as this begins. Yasuo and Gwak is like, holy crap, let's get fighting. We got ultimates, we're ready to go. And it's a much slower reaction. Ezreal never joins, and Galio's not in ult range. So this is outnumbered by Griffin. Outnumbered on Griffin for basically the entirety of the play. They go super aggressively to get the first kill. Sword buys a lot of time, and Lehends comes to join. And the fact that Griffin keep this so even without Ezreal ever joining is a sign of Griffin as a team where their wordless communication has always been a staple. Because they come out like bandits here because Ezreal gets the farm and gets a good back time.
Yeah, you're thinking that when Chovy gets body slammed there, it might be all over for Griffin, but then all of a sudden, Lehends and Tarzan make the kill happen, and Lehends and Chovy getting with the blasting plan to safety up to the top side and somehow making it all the way out of that one unscathed, even after the Lee Sin chase in the top side. So after all that fighting, KT will pick up a second Drake. This one will be the Cloud Drake. That will go into a second mountain afterwards. So nice little pickup as well for KT, who's had a pretty good early game so far.
Where this game is going is a very interesting one for me. You know, usually I talk about the identity of teams and how they're either overlapping or not overlapping in the late game. This is probably the first time where it's going to be really intriguing. It feels like, even though they're not mirror 4-1 comps, you say, okay, Griffin first picked the Galio to get him farming. What are they doing with this comp now after all the swaps? It's actually pretty good wave clear and a Fiora. But usually, on the other side, you'll see a Yorick Mori, and he usually fits in 4-1 as well, right? Because he's one of the strongest 1v1 laners. Because of where we see itemization, it could be that Yorick just won't be able to handle Fiora in the late game, and right now he has to handle a Zac.
Smeb already in a bunch of trouble here as UmTi doesn't want to get anywhere near that fight. Nice little follow-up from Tarzan to make a kill happen in the top lane.
Seems like this game is going to be trying to get team fights going with a Yasuo versus good ranged wave clear and a Fiora. And when the Fiora gets more kill involvements, that can't be good.
He's going to miss the Rift Herald, I think. He's going to be dead.
Yeah, I think
17 seconds, that's going to be wasted. Really, really unfortunate.
Didn't have any vision. They didn't have any vision on camps apart from the Raptors, you'll see. So they had no idea where Zac was, and
it's gone.
It's gone.
Ooh, well, speaking of which, Tarzan trying to make things interesting, but Zoe is a fun champion. Going to deny any follow-up there from Chovy and Lehends. But meanwhile, after that kill, Sword just putting more gold into his pockets.
Sword takes down the turret solo. On the top will be first turret of the game. First turret gold went down, but it's still there. So it's more gold towards the second item, mid lane.
Gets the knockup, but Galio immediately here. Chovy turning onto BDD, nearly able to take him out on the backside. That Chaos Storm is going to get him on the last tick. Oh, baby. As see you later, BDD Chovy is the winner of the mid lane matchup so far.
And BDD a hair's breadth away from his own flash to escape. No way to go out. Last tick arms and takes him down. And that's off a proactive play by his own support.
Oh, man. Well, we were talking about how in 9.2 the mid lane, kind of boring, honestly. A lot of Galio, Sion, Urgot, Lissandra, tanks, Aftershock, bleh. But now we got Victor versus Zoe. A lot of action happening there so far as Chovy's 3-0.
So all they know is that Raptors are down and Zac is not near the Raptors. They don't know anything else. And this shouldn't be the way. The more important point than watching the kill, because he's under turret, right? He's going to die here, is that in a game where they had priority in the mid lane and the top lane and were winning bot at one point, they don't have any wards on Zac. Why is Zac unaccounted for is the bigger problem here. Chovy just walks up. He hits his first round, and the last tick of the Chaos Storm picks up the kill. But this is the exact sort of game where Zac should have been on a short leash, and we've seen it already so many times. Cuz earlier this week. It's not happening. They're getting away with the Zac. They're getting away with the Fiora, and she's towards her second item.
Griffin, somehow, some way, even after a nice little start for KT in the bottom side, are absolutely catching up. We've seen Yasuo's get fed and get ahead early on in other games and then struggle because the rest of his team are not quite on the same level. Kind of get that feeling once again here as Zenit 2-0 and 2 and quite fed himself. Can he actually carry this team by himself?
I also want to register my apologies. I suggested that Lehends might use his extra farm to pick up AP. We should have known Redemption would come first because he builds it on every champion.
Yes. A lot of Griffin players do that as UmTi forced to flash away from that one, and now Tarzan would have been in trouble, but Zac is going to be forced to blow his ultimate to get to safety.
I actually did the research. There's only been 2 best of 1s of the 13 they've played where they didn't have at least 1 redemption. They are definitely the teams get the highest percentage of redemptions. They get it on Olaf, they get it on support. It was insane they didn't get one. I actually thought it was all games, but it seems like they just really rate the item because skirmishes are happening more. Remember, it's a skirmish meta. It's an early game snowball meta where people are overextending for things like turret plates. How about a semi-global heal or damage spell to help out with that situation?
They love it, and they're going to be loving their Chovy. 3-0 so far is going to be fed as all hell near the top of the farm list as well. We'll see what he can do on the Victor. We were wondering, okay, Chovy, where are you going to go after your 6-0 Akali got banned away? Well, he's going to play Victor for the first time this split and do a pretty damn good job so far.
And the matchup sucks against Zoe because Zoe has similar wave clear, and you're a mid-range mage against a trouble bubble that can kill you. And he hasn't even had to use his cleanse in this game. So this is much more about Chovy than about the matchup. Going 3-0 in this matchup is impressive, we'll call it, and going CS for CS helpful. The Fiora's only now getting to the good spot, and she's not even behind in CS. So this has definitely gone wayward for KT, and even the next time we see the Ezreal gold, have a look at this. It is 900, but remember, Ezreal now has multiple ways to farm. A Klepto proc, the Quest proc, and also just CSing. That gold gap should only get smaller, and 2-item Ezreal at this time is just fine.
Just having a fun time as KT looking to start this Drake as well. Blasting Plant's going to help Snowflower survive as a level 8 support. Gragas gets out of dodge there, was pretty close. But Griffin don't seem super confident to just run up to the Drake and take it right now, checking it with True Shot Barrage and some wards and stuff like that, as neither team is going to make a move towards the Mountain Drake just yet.
They definitely don't have a comp that is super confident diving. Zac is good at it, Galio can follow, but Victor very much wants a fight coming to him, and Ezreal can only provide so much from range. So because of that, they have to be a bit careful with their approaches. They don't have a teleport top laner, because think back to all the Griffin victories, and how many of them were sword from a flank? Almost all of them. His ability to drift on both champions very impressive. So because of that, their approaches have to be a bit more careful, and you're always scared of both a Q and an ultimate from Gragas or Yasuo.
Drake getting pretty low, but look at that Victor damage onto Snowflower. He might pay for it, but no, he is going to get away alive. Drake does go the way of Griffin, but now Zenit in a lot of trouble. The Ignite ticking down, but they can't quite get him so low as Viper's going in. And we got a fight at the Drake as well as the rest of KT getting way too close to the sun. 2 more will go down in the Drake fight.
Turn CC there was awesome, knocking their heads together just as the taunt was ready. They're chasing for more.
Oh no, BDD. Not like this. He is going to get away as Viper did miss that last Mystic shot.
That gets him away with his life, but the mid lane turret isn't going to be so lucky. The gold lead is out of order for the greedy draft that Griffin started with. It's going to be 5,000 gold. Viper almost randomly died. He'll go down here, but almost 5,000 gold is the lead, and we are no closer to knowing who will match Fiora in the side lane.
At this point, getting close to that Trinity Force, we'll see once he does get that up, he's going to take a second turret for himself and maybe just go ahead and go back and buy it.
This is, again, a very hard fight because we talked about how in the 4-1 comp, Griffin don't have a great answer to hard engage. The hard engage comes in, but watch the end of this fight. That's the impressive part, is that by the end, it's two members diving the backline, and Tarzan doesn't die because he knocks heads into the instant taunt. The turn here, outstanding, while Viper was going for some chase kills. That's just Griffin team fighting. It needs no introduction anymore. We're very much in the realm of possibility with them. And speaking of possibility, you add 6 kills and assists with no deaths, and it's 44.7 for good old Chovy.
He's getting up there in a big way. It's kind of an unfortunate fight there for UmTi, who's now down 2 levels. Is going to get away from this one as Tarzan. He's a big boy on the Zac. Can that cask actually save Snowflower? Looks like the resounding answer will be an absolute no. As the rest of his team just going to give him away, as Chovy will get another kill.
He instantly died to a QE there. That was surprising. He was over 60% health. I would say that Chovy's in a good spot now, 5-0-2.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good, Papa. You know, I wouldn't complain with that one. I called Tarzan the big boy, but it's actually Chovy in this game, 5-0-2.
And Zenit has had to go for a my team's not doing so good build on Yasuo.
Trying to get onto Chovy here. They do get that knock up, and finally a kill is going to come in onto the Victor. Lots of gold going the way of UmTi, as now Tarzan is going to get away. That all starts after one trouble bubble from the side of BDD. Definitely feeling good about that one.
How the trouble bubble in the 4 was what KT needed in a more even game, and maybe it can even bail them out of the bad spot they're in now. Chovy goes down, and KDA calculations have to once again be changed. 4th death of the season for Chovy in their 13th game. Zenit pushes up. He's going to, with his Bloodthirster, you'll notice, more defensive build, be able to go for some more aggressive uses of the last breath because he doesn't have to worry about popping. It's not exactly Asterix, but it is filling a pretty similar role.
We return to the side lane as it's Sword, who is 2-1 with 2 massive items up against Smeb, who is 0-3 and desperately trying not to lose a turret.
It's all about the lust for getting a control ward there. Lehends could have body blocked better. He actually thinks about the taunt more than he thinks about body blocking, and unfortunately that means that his mid laner dies instantly. Fans of KDA around the world very upset with Lehends right now.
You know, team effort. Getting pretty deep into that one. It's just the power of the Zoe once you land your abilities. VDD finally gets something good for himself. He's, by the way, rushing for a pretty sweet hat, which feels like the new name of the Rabadon's death cap here at the LCK, as everybody uses that one. But he's getting it as his 2nd item, so really just going heavy on the AP stacking here.
People were asking a bit about Yorick, because the one time we saw Yorick from Tal was against Karma, which on paper you're like, ooh, ranged matchup, how's Yorick going to deal with it? Whenever Karma overextends for an auto attack to get Spell Thieves, the cage actually kind of screws her over. She doesn't have an escape. Fiora does not give any cares about the W from Yorick. She has 0-second cooldown on her Q. And thus will be able to just dive in there and get a kill. So that increases the ability for Fiora to destroy this matchup. And like we always say, she's pretty good at matchups once she gets those 2 items and near her to level 16.
Sword having a fun time. We were questioning his Fiora, but it's only been positive stuff, you'd have to say, from him so far. Was doing well, CS for CS, up against Smeb. Got behind about 10 eventually, but wasn't a big deal as the Fiora. And now they have so many strong parts to their lineup. The Zac is super tanky. You got that Fed Victor still. You have the winning side lane push in the Fiora. Griffin feeling pretty good, trying to set up some vision around the Baron.
Now, what do they not have? You could mention that Baron damage is pretty middling. There's no Blade of the Ruin King yet for Ezreal. So because of that, Victor's only decent at Baron. The ability for Fiora to be bot side and impact the situation is a little bit more narrow than some of the other win conditions here. We've seen teams already, like Sandbox, frustrated from actually being able to pick up a Baron. If you think back to game number 1, we're not talking about game number 2. Game number 1, that one was a little bit more of a real game. Sword, however, will get a free Ocean Drake and wants to get the next one to spawn. Will be only one more Drake here in this game.
What's it gonna be? Get your dice out. Okay, it's Cloud Drake. Not the best. Really would have liked that Infernal, but hey, you can't always get lucky.
A lot of ability for KT to punish a Baron start because Usually, when we talk about Gragas bowling, which is Gragas standing behind the pit and throwing in cues just to get temporary vision when you fall behind as a red side team, there's not a lot of tooth behind it, right? However, Gragas bowling could herald a pretty decently farmed Yasuo joining. And Lee Sin has a way to also just kick someone over and get a Yasuo started. So because of that, you're very afraid of taking the amplified damage from the Baron auto attack into some actually pretty relevant burst, whether it's the magic damage from BDD or a Yasuo committal. So given what we were saying about lane assignments with the Fiora and the Baron speed being middling, Griffin have to be very careful not to screw up around the Baron.
Yeah, I mean, even 5,000 gold behind, if you get the perfect, it doesn't even have to be perfect, but all that burst damage you were talking about, you get it onto the right target, a Victor, an Ezreal. Even a Fiora, if it comes down to it. You got Yasuo, Zoe, Lee Sin. You're going to be feeling pretty good about that one. Trying to get on top of BDD here, though. That is going to fail as the trouble bubble. Going to stop Tarzan in his tracks. Here's Sword. Nice wind wall as well, as now Tarzan getting on in there. Big taunt onto Zenit, but they do get the knock up here onto Chovy. Can they kill him? That's who they want. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to get close here as Zenit goes way too far in and is going to be punished for that one. 2 kills do go the way of Griffin as the rest of KT go home with their tail between their legs.
KT Rolster probably paying the price for the early game gold disadvantage because actually there was a pretty big mistake on the chase there from Sword. We'll talk about it in the replay. But Zoe was able to regroup. It was a 5v4 temporarily with all the gold from Sword not in any way relevant, and still we get to the scenario where Griffin pick up a kill and they continue to push.
Not going to go for the Baron here. No reason to. UmTi still alive. They'd rather just go for the push, go for the gold, and get even farther ahead in this game as they're looking at the inhibitor. Doesn't look like they're going to stretch for it, though, as the rest of KT do come up.
Viper with the parting gift of the True Shot Barrage, and they back away. I want to talk about the replay. We'll load that one up very soon. But like you mentioned, not the ultimate punishment of the Baron, and the TP being down from Sword relieves some pressure. So what happens here is that Tarzan says, all right, KT have gone up too far. Let's get a fight now because the TP plays we talked about aren't going to work. Sword comes in, he chases BDD, but remember that if Sword flashes, BDD gets a flash. And that's the problem here, is that Sword flashes, he thrift shops the flash and just gets out, and Sword doesn't have his flash or his Q cooldown to join. So it becomes a 5v4, and if Zenit has another item behind him, if they're a bit stronger, maybe they win that one, KT. But here's the chase.
Okay, forced to blow that ultimate here is Tarzan, as he was going to get trouble bubbled. If not, he's tanky, but not tanky enough to deal with all that damage on the side of KT. Just gets away, but even still, you still have that Fiora in the side lane, who's a huge thorn in their side now, above 300 CS, and Sword shows no sign of stopping, and the engage from KT is denied.
He continues to build items. Now, BDD's backing it up. They're trying to punish Sword here. Is 2 enough? We'll find out.
Gets him there in the cage, as now Sword getting pretty low. Gonna miss on that one. Dashes away, and Sword, with that ignite, Smeb, one more spell could do it, but the riposte!
Ghouls!
But there it is! The ghouls come in and say, hello. You are now going down. A nice bit of gold finally going in Smeb's pocket.
And I gotta ask Valdez, was it right to run? I'm not sure. I'm not a Fiora main, but we saw Khan turning on 3, 4 last time out, and while the item timings aren't the same, he never made the attempt to proc the vitals to get the heal, potentially to buy himself time. Showed a lot of respect there. Felt more like the play of a split push tank player rather than a Fiora aggressive top laner. So, hard to say on that one. Was going to be damned if he does or damned if he doesn't. Decide to go back, and in the end, does go down after all.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate. As you mentioned, the item timings there, he didn't have his Sterix completed, so just pick that up after dying.
My read from just watching competitive Fioras and seeing a couple of solo games is try the all in there. You have a more chance of success than if you go fully defensive.
Yeah. I mean, Yorick, surprisingly, with, as we can see, some decent chase, even onto a Fiora, is able to get in there, and Smeb picks up that kill. So he does go down. Flash, of course, was not available as it was blown over at the Baron earlier on. Once again, Tarzan gonna have some trouble with some sleepy trouble bubbles, but nothing else doing here as Fiora just returns to the side lane.
Griffin's 2 frontliners. I'll hold the point for a second, but both the Zac and the Galio are actually able to buffer CC really well, so they can actually walk up on Zoe, and some champions just can't, right? Because they have no ability to dash and thus increase the distance between them and Zoe. So both the Justice Punch and also the Elastic Slingshot, even the ultimate from the Zac means there's 3 abilities to walk up, try to contest vision, and then disengage a trouble bubble. That allows them to move forward, and Sword, with no TP, gets another Drake. Does mean we have Elder spawning around 37 minutes.
Yeah, wanting to get that as soon as possible. You'll notice that he didn't even get really into the lane, just went and pushed one wave and then went straight to the Drake to get that Elder to spawn as soon as possible. Watching here as the vision game might decide this one. The gold lead is your first thought. The team comp being pretty decent from Griffin is your second, but given how much time we've spent explaining that killing this Baron is actually pretty hard with the scenario that Griffin are in and the champions that KT have to threaten, I think this game is going to be more about a ward exhaustion mistake or a overextension by someone rather than by just a TP play. Speaking of TP plays, they're not up still. We're watching Smeb and Sword contend in the bot side. Well, top lane, actually. The bot lane, yes. Yeah. Fiora doesn't really care about that Maiden. Just comes up and swipes her in the face a couple of times. Says, get out of here. This is my lane. As the biggest level gap in the game currently is level 18 on Sword compared to level 10 on Snowflower, who is a very, very sad Gragas bowler in this game. Has the opportunity to engage. They're going now on the engage for Zenit as Galio shows up. See you later. As that time around, Zenit thought he could farm near his turret, but Zac says no.
Absolutely not. He has 2 control wards down. He thinks he's safe, but it's Zac, and you need to know where Zac is. Eyes off Zac. Big problems already, and they're going to break the base in a second spot.
Just trying to clear the wave here is the rest of KT. Snowflower continues with the sad bowling. They have to call over the Yorick to deal with it. BDD goes in for 1 paddle star and loses more than half his life. As now they're going to try to make another play onto Sword here. Trying to get that kick, but Sword just flashes away from that one. Doesn't really care as the rest of his team is taking out the base.
He's not role-playing the Fiora, but it's being effective. He's pushing. Reminds me of Chovy on this champion, a 1.7 KDA, but couldn't stop winning games just because of the map pressure that a champion like Fiora will draw. She continues to push, and it all comes down to that positioning mistake we were alluding to. If we do get a replay of the kill, the question is Yasuo overextended? And if that question ends there and there's no asterisks, if you just pause the game and you don't have the champion lineup from Griffin, the answer is no. But the moment you say, by the way, the enemy team has a Zac, the answer is yes, and that was the big change there. Didn't respect the engage range of level 5 Slingshot. Watch the replay here. Again, has 2 control wards and a Gragas, but walks up too far, and that's just what Zac and Galio are all about.
Zac, Galio, and the damage there from Chovy to make sure that he would go down. Yasuo can be slippery, but when it's a 3-on-1 and everybody can just get into range immediately, essentially, you're not going to have trouble. I mean, he was right near the turret, but still too far. Really tells you a lot about the current game state up against the Zac-Galio combination, as now Griffin looking for another pick in the KT jungle.
Right now they have 2 inhibitors down, so they don't have to be too brazen here. Anytime KT walks up like this, the game will just end if these 3 members die. They're chasing Chovy, but they know Tarzan's near.
Look at Chovy, he just says, no, I'm going to take you out. You're not going to do anything to me. He's got the speed boost as well as now he's going to Zhonya's, even the knockup from Zenit. Just showing off a little bit here is Chovy as the rep of KT. Trying to get away from Griffin here as Viper. Trying to get on into BDD and UmTi, but there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide as everybody on KT is going down.
It's even scarier than that. Viper's stopping them getting to their own base. The enemy AD carry is what's denying you. Smeb will scurry away on this Undertaker, but the Undertaker's losing this match, that's for sure. Griffin pushes up. They're chasing for the kill. They won't get it, but they'll kill the game.
Well, he's going to be pretty close. Doesn't get it there. Jungler on jungler. Tarzan 2 levels ahead. Probably going to win that one. Would actually like to see that more than this fight at the end of the day. But the rest of KT desperately trying to stop this back. Sword going to pick up another kill here as nobody else is going to go down, and Griffin will bring down game number 1.
Interesting game there. Griffin really set this one up to be tricky. Their draft was not super respectful. of the early game power of KT Rolster, and in the end the read was pretty good. Around the top side of the map where things should have been really good for KT, Zach kind of got to farm within 1 to 2 camps of a Lee Sin, and it was actually the bot lane and Lehends' mistakes in the Frostmancy Galio position actually was the only good note for KT in the early game. From there though, Griffin skirmishing, Griffin's team